I'm Barclay Ray. I'm Axia's Global Head of Services. Today I'm going to be joined by Brian Henry, who's our Service Development Manager, and we're going to be talking about integrating Service Catalog with the business. So giving you good advice on how to progress with your Service Catalog and SLA project and avoid the pitfalls and really implement a good quality Service Catalog with your organization. Today's webcast will be available on demand. We already have two previous webcasts that we've done, which were talking about making the business case and also how you define and design services. And so this one will be available within a couple of days. And also those of you that have registered for today's webcast will receive a copy of the slides. So rest assured that you can get that after the webcast. As we go through today, and I'll just show you the agenda, at various points during this webcast you will be asked some questions. They are mostly about where your own SLA project or a service catalog is, and we get dynamic information back. So we can actually feed the results back to you and give you some indication on, I guess, where the community is in terms of their maturity and what their interests are in this area. So our agenda, first couple of slides really just covering some ground that we have already discussed in the previous two webcasts, and if you want more detail on service catalog definition and business case, service definition and so on, then please listen into the on-demand webcast, because we will only just cover a couple of basic points in that. What is a service catalog? What do we mean by services? Moving on to the main topics for today, really about how you would go about negotiating, implementing, developing SLAs across your organization. So we'll talk about service catalog and we'll talk about SLAs, and there's a clue in there as to how to progress with that. One of the things that we find, and I've certainly found over the years, is that many organizations have SLAs or they've attempted SLAs, and one way or another they become redundant or they become obsolete. And a lot of the SLAs that are actually out there, certainly in my opinion, are probably justified in being called a bit of a waste of time. And we want to avoid that, because SLAs are a valuable asset, a valuable tool that you can use. So how do we avoid doing that? How do we avoid producing something that's really not of much value and not of much interest to the organization? And that's what we will then cover in more detail, particularly then talking about the tools and the best ways to get buy-in from your organization, how to engage your customers, how to engage your IT organization using tools and the approach. We're not particularly focusing on tools in detail, but we obviously reference our assist tool in that. But it's very much about how you can make the most of what you've got and actually use that to your benefit to get people to buy in. We'll be open to take questions during the webcast, so any of you that do have questions, again, we can see them in real time and we'll try and answer them. So fire them into us and we can have a look at them, and at the end Brian and I will have a bit of a question and answer session on your comments. So moving forward, a little bit about Axius. For those of you that are not aware of us, we've been around over 20 years, very much coinciding with the development of ITIL from the late 80s, early 90s. Our product has expanded in that space, and IT service management is what we do. It's all we do. We don't do anything else. We do it globally. We've got coverage across all continents, and we've just recently launched in our version 9 product, which is available on a SaaS platform, but also has an extensive service catalog functionality, and that covers both the user front end, the portal, the business view, and also the technical view. So it's a fully functional service catalog. That's a little bit about us, and I've just jumped ahead slightly there. What is a service catalog? As a background to this, What do we understand by that? Well, this is, I talked about the user request portal. This is what that might look like. That's what we're aiming for, I think, in IT, is to produce something that our customers really relate to, that they really is similar to their experience of using other sites and retail portals, not some horrible IT green screen system that they don't understand, but that allows them to log requests and incidents and so on in an intuitive way, a very simple way. That would be the kind of front end of that, and the tip of the iceberg, if you like. And if we look at this model, which has kind of evolved over the last few years about different elements of a service catalog, the user request is the bit that's experienced by the customer, the end user. It's about their request fulfillment and should be similar in its usage to a shopping experience. But our definition below that, and as part of the more IT and business part of this, I think we understand that we need to have a number of different levels reflected in different types of information, different types of reporting, and different, I guess, system components. So this is really the SLA view. This is the bit that the business customer, the management of your customers, would be looking at or would receive information from, reporting information around about service levels, and they were the guys obviously that you would negotiate with to create your SLAs. But below that is the IT view, if you like. For the IT provider, all the information that they need to piece together the supply chain of that service. Component information, infrastructure, applications, hardware and software, and things like processes, departmental information and so on. All that they need to create the service that is then requested at this level. And that, if you like, from the ITIL point of view, is the operational level agreement underpinning contract type information. So I think one of the issues, certainly for me over the years, is seeing people trying to create service catalogs and probably mixing this stuff up. It tends to have been a spreadsheet where we try and include elements that will appeal to all of these different levels, and of course ultimately it doesn't really satisfy any of those levels. And I think that's one of the things with the emergence of the tools in the last few years, that we can actually provide that multi-layer view, we can provide that multi-level operation dynamic view, as well as reporting levels. So service catalog is more than just one definition. It's got a number of different areas, and your SLA part is key to that. It's key to how you will progress the development of your services. It's key also to the relationship with your customer, and we're going to start talking a little bit more about that as we go forward. What do we mean by services? We've talked about this before. Again, it's very much being aware of, and in ITIL version 3 terms, the distinction between utility and warranty. The technical capability of a service as opposed to the way that it's delivered. So you might have a system that functionally works perfectly but only performs at a very slow performance rate, and the performance is the warranty and the functionality is the utility. It's very much just trying to get IT organizations thinking and getting into this square here where we combine the best of both. We think about the way that the service is delivered as well as what it actually is. And that's the goal, I guess, we're all trying to achieve in terms of getting a service focus. But a service, a definition of a service is obviously a bundle of components, a bundle of IT components that we put together to deliver a particular business function, and not just a system. Very much where people can go wrong when they start to look at SLAs is they just think about providing a list of systems, and that's not what the customer wants, it's not what the end user wants, and also it's not really what's enough for the IT department to be able to create the service and service level. Okay, so if we're talking about negotiating our SLAs and thinking about what we do across the business, it's important, I think, just to be really clear on the distinction between those three things. Not that, you can have an SLA as part of a contract, and you can have an OLA that's part of an SLA, and so on, underpinning contracts and OLAs under SLAs. There's a number of different levels of relationship. But in terms of the form of these things, An SLA is not a contract. A contract is something that you have to set up with another organization in perhaps adversarial terms to protect yourself. An SLA shouldn't be just about protecting both organizations. It should be about creating a positive view of the service. And so many of the SLAs that you see within our organizations between two departments in the same company are written like contracts, are written defensively, protective. They're all negative about things going wrong, and actually I think what we need to do when we define our services and our service levels is think about positive services. When you go into a shop to buy something, the first thing the salesperson doesn't say to you is, okay, well here's the amount of risk associated with this product, or I want to buy a phone, well, you know, here's the warranty terms. You want to know about the functionality, you want to know about the capability of that, and what's going to appeal to you first before you engage in all the difficult stuff. But an SLA obviously is an agreement. It can be relatively simple. It should be. An OLA can be even simpler because that's within IT, and in some cases that's just a fairly tacit agreement. And a contract is something that's formal, legal, and financial. And they all have their place, but they are all different. And if you're just looking at SLAs, then you don't need to get into the language and the form of a contract. When you're thinking about setting up service level agreements and your services, you need to have some kind of project approach. You need to have a person or a team of people who've got credibility in the organization. They're known across the organization. They've got a number of key skills, but part of what they're doing is about setting up this process, workshops, negotiating, facilitating between different parties, producing documentation, certainly building the catalogue, and then identifying the reporting requirements. All these things go on in a kind of central role, and you need to go and talk to the business, you need to go and talk to your customers and identify with them in a fairly blank page way. It's important, I think, not to be too prescriptive with what you say to them, but you need to go and talk to them and understand what's important to them, and then do the same thing with your IT organization by understanding what their constraints are and how they would actually deliver those services. And between those two, you are the facilitator. If you're creating SLAs, you have to come to some agreement, you have to come to some sensible agreement that is acceptable to both parties. It's got to be realistic enough to be acceptable to the customer, and it's also going to be realistic enough to be achievable by the service provider. And again, sometimes it goes one way or other too far, and it's important that you've got somebody who mediates and has got the right skills to get that sense of balance. To me, an SLA should be very simple in summary, and it should reflect the fact that there has been discussion and agreement. If it's 200 pages, then it's just documenting what you don't agree with, or a service level disagreement. And an SLA is about what we've actually come to agree and work between us, and that's actually quite simple when it's boiled down. When you come across this, people in your organization are going to start saying, SLAs, what a load of rubbish, what a waste of time. How are you going to tackle that? We're going to ask you the first question now, and that's about the extent to which your organization is aware of SLAs, service catalogue, and if you can just indicate one of those answers, that will help us. We can see where you all are.